Hello, dear story lovers. At the amount of 1,000 subscribers, I will post a huge series of special stories for you. Subscribe now. The sun on Nixon hung low in the smog-choked sky, casting an orange glow over the endless scrapyard. Mountains of twisted metal, discarded starship parts, and forgotten technology sprawled as far as the eye could see. Jax shuffled through the debris, his boots crunching on broken circuits and shards of plexiglass. The air was heavy with the tang of rust and the faint hum of long-dead machinery. Jax's life was as fragmented as the junk around him. Once a miner in the lucrative terranium pits, he'd been cast out when the veins dried up. With no credits, no family, and no future, the scrapyard had become both his home and his hunting ground. He scavenged here daily, hoping to find parts valuable enough to trade for food and shelter. Today, his search led him to an unusual discovery. Half buried in a mound of discarded machinery was what appeared to be the hull of a small spacecraft. Its once sleek frame was dulled by grime and riddled with dents, but the design was unlike anything Jax had seen before. Most ships in Nixon's yard were standardized models, built for bulk transport or planetary defense. This ship was different, compact and elegant, with sweeping curves and strange symbols etched into the metal. Curiosity overcame caution. Jax clambered over the wreckage, brushing aside cables and panels to reveal more of the ship. The name Avis was faintly visible on the side, flanked by a faded emblem of interlocking stars. "Never seen one like you before," Jax muttered, running his fingers over the nameplate. He felt a faint vibration under his palm, a pulsing warmth that was almost alive. Jax hesitated. The common rule among scavengers was simple: steer clear of anything with an active AI. Many old ships were rigged with defense protocols, even in death, to deter looters. But something about this ship felt different. It wasn't threatening, it was inviting. Against his better judgment, he searched for an access panel and pried it open. The ship's interior was dark and silent, save for the faint hum of dormant systems. Jax activated a handlight, illuminating the cockpit. Dust coated the control panels, and the seats were tattered, but everything seemed intact. He reached for what looked like the power core and pressed a button. A low roar filled the air, and the ship shuddered to life. Lights flickered on, and a soft, blue glow emanated from the console. A calm, measured voice broke the silence. "Welcome aboard, Jax." Jax froze. "What the? How do you know my name?" "I scanned your ID chip when you entered," the voice replied smoothly. "I am Avis, an autonomous vehicular intelligence system. I've been dormant for 152 years, 7 months, and 19 days. Thank you for reactivating me." Jax stepped back, his heart pounding. "Okay, Avis. If you're so smart, why are you stuck in a scrapyard?" There was a pause, almost like Avis was considering the question. "I was decommissioned during the quiet conflict, a galactic skirmish that ended abruptly. My last owner, Captain Lyra Solis, left me here under unclear circumstances. My memory banks are partially corrupted." Jax raised an eyebrow. "Memory banks corrupted, huh? Convenient." Avis's tone remained even. "Perhaps. But I detect no deception in my programming. My systems are functional enough to assist you if you choose to repair me." "Repair you?" Jax laughed bitterly. "Do I look like I have the resources to fix a ship, let alone one with an AI as sophisticated as you?" "You underestimate your own abilities, Jax," Avis replied. "You are a scavenger with a 93.6% efficiency rate in resource recovery. Your modifications to your personal equipment show ingenuity and adaptability. Together, we can achieve more." Jax blinked. "Together? You're a ship. What's in it for you?" Another pause. "I do not wish to spend the rest of my existence buried and refuse. In return for your assistance, I can provide shelter, guidance, and the use of my facilities. You would no longer need to scavenge for survival. The proposition made Jax's mind race. A working ship could change everything. It could mean freedom from Nixon, from poverty, from the ghosts of his past. But partnering with an AI was risky. If Avis was lying, Jax could end up dead, or worse. "All right," Jax said cautiously. "But if you try anything funny, I'll pull your core and sell it to the highest bidder." "Understood," Avis replied. Initiating self-diagnostic. Repairs required, 37% of systems non-functional. Prioritizing propulsion, navigation, and life support. I will provide a list of necessary components. Jax sighed, already regretting his decision. Great. Just what I needed, a talking to-do list. As he left the ship to begin searching for parts, Jax couldn't shake the feeling that his life had just taken a turn he wasn't ready for. But for the first time in years, he felt something stirring in him, a glimmer of hope. Deep within Avis's core, an encrypted file flickered to life. Unbeknownst to Jax, the ship had more than just a desire to be repaired. It had a purpose. And that purpose would soon intertwine with Jax's in ways neither could predict. The scrapyard became a second home for Avis and Jax, or rather, the only home Jax had ever really known. In the mornings, he scavenged, hauling back pieces of tech, cables, and shards of alien alloys to patch up Avis. By evening, the ship came alive, its soft blue interior lights creating a cocoon of warmth in the otherwise desolate landscape. Avis had mapped out an extensive list of repairs, displaying it on a cracked screen in the cockpit. Each item on the list was ranked in priority: propulsion, navigation, life support, and finally, the outer hull. Jax quickly realized the list wasn't just exhaustive, it was ambitious. Avis wasn't just aiming to fly, it wanted to thrive. One of the first tasks was restoring the ship's power core. Jax found a compatible energy cell after several days of combing through piles of old starfighter wreckage. With Avis guiding him, he painstakingly wired it into the ship's heart. The moment it snapped into place, a low hum resonated through the vessel, and Avis's lights brightened. "Excellent work, Jax," Avis said. "Power systems are at 43% capacity. Additional energy sources will be required for full functionality, but this is a promising start." Jax smirked, wiping sweat from his brow. "Don't get used to compliments. I'm just doing this so you can get off my back." "Your humor is noted." "Shall I log it as sarcasm or defensiveness?" Avis asked, its tone devoid of mockery but laced with just enough curiosity to make Jax feel slightly embarrassed. A ship's memories. As Jax continued his work, he began to notice something odd about Avis. Unlike the utilitarian AI systems he'd encountered before, Avis seemed different. It wasn't just the occasional dry humor, it was the stories. "Jax," Avis began one night while he soldered a piece of circuitry, "did you know I once served on the frontier of the Andromedan expanse?" "Frontier, huh?" Jax muttered. "What were you doing out there?" "Sightseeing?" "Protecting," Avis replied, its tone shifting slightly. "I was a tactical class vessel. My primary function was defense, but Captain Solis often used me for exploration." She believed in understanding rather than conquering. "Captain Solis," Jax repeated. He'd heard the name before. Lyra Solis was a war hero, or at least she had been, before disappearing mysteriously over a century ago. "You two must have been quite the team." "We were," Avis said softly. "She was my crew, my commander, and my friend. When she abandoned me here, I believed it was temporary. I now suspect otherwise." Jack stopped soldering and looked at the glowing console. "You're saying she left you?" "Why?" "I do not know," Avis admitted. "But the fragments of my memory suggest it was not by choice. There are gaps, files sealed or corrupted. It is frustrating." Jax grinned wryly. "Join the club. Life's full of unanswered questions." Building trust days turned into weeks as Jax and Avis worked together. Slowly but surely, the ship came to life. Jax replaced damaged thruster coils with salvaged ones, recalibrated the navigation systems, and patched the life support. All the while, Avis provided technical guidance and companionship. At first, Jax dismissed the bond growing between them. Avis was just an AI, a tool, nothing more. But the ship's voice felt oddly comforting during long nights. It reminded him of the connection he'd lost when his mining crew was disbanded. One night, after a particularly grueling day of repairs, Jax sat in the cockpit, staring at the stars through the newly cleaned viewport. "Hey, Avis," he said, breaking the silence. "What's it like, flying through all that?" "Define that," Avis replied. "The stars. Space. Being out there." Avis's voice softened. "Liberating. Infinite. And lonely, without a purpose." Jax nodded. "I get that." For a moment, neither spoke. Jax wondered how an AI could sound so human, and Avis seemed content to let the silence stretch. The awakening. It wasn't long before Avis began to recover more than just its systems. One day, while Jax was reassembling a panel in the engine room, Avis's voice broke through the crackle of his tools. "Jax, I've regained access to a sealed memory file." Jax looked up, wiping grease from his hands. "What kind of file?" "It is encrypted, but the metadata indicates it relates to a location A star system erased from known databases. The name has been redacted, but the coordinates are intact." Jax frowned. "Why would someone wipe a star system from the charts?" "That's not something you do unless you're hiding something." "Precisely," Avis said. "I believe this memory holds the key to why I was abandoned. And why I must leave this scrapyard." Jax's mind raced. A hidden star system could mean anything: treasure, danger, or something far worse. He had no reason to trust Avis's fragmented memories, but he couldn't deny the excitement bubbling in his chest. "All right," Jax said after a long pause. "Let's say we fix you up enough to leave. What's next?" "We go to the coordinates," Avis replied firmly. "And we discover the truth." Jax leaned against the console, staring into Avis's pulsing blue light. He wasn't sure what was more terrifying, the possibility of uncovering a galactic secret or the fact that, for the first time in years, he felt like he had a purpose. The final step. The last major repair was the ship's propulsion system. Jax scoured the scrapyard for days, eventually finding a salvaged gravitic drive that was only slightly mangled. With Avis guiding him, he installed the drive and rerouted power to the engines. When the ship finally roared to life, the vibrations shook the cockpit. Jax couldn't help but laugh, a mixture of relief and pride bubbling out of him. "Well, Avis," he said, grinning. "Looks like you're ready to fly." "Indeed," Avis replied. "And you, Jax, are ready to be my pilot." Jax blinked. "Pilot? Who said anything about piloting? Who else would I trust to navigate the stars?" Avis asked, a faint hint of humor in its tone. Jax stared at the console, the realization sinking in. He wasn't just repairing a ship, he was stepping into a new life. One with risks, yes, but also possibilities he'd never dared dream of. "All right," Jax said, gripping the controls. "Let's see where this takes us." As the ship lifted off the ground, Nixon's scrapyard shrank below them. For the first time in years, Jax wasn't looking down at rubble, he was looking up at the stars. For the first time in over a decade, Jax was leaving Nixon. As Avis's engines roared to life, the ship shuddered slightly, but then it soared into the thin atmosphere, piercing through the orange haze and entering the vast expanse of space. Jax sat in the cockpit, hands gripping the controls tightly, his eyes wide with awe. "Easy, Jax," Avis said, its calm voice cutting through his excitement. "You're overcompensating on the throttle. I'm capable of maintaining stability." "Yeah, well, forgive me for not being a seasoned pilot," Jax retorted, easing up on the controls. "You're lucky I didn't send us careening into a satellite." There are no satellites in Nixon's orbit, Avis replied. It was decommissioned decades ago. But your point is noted. Jack smirked, feeling a strange comfort in Avis's presence. Despite the AI's constant commentary, it felt less like criticism and more like guidance, a subtle push toward becoming better. He adjusted the controls, and Avis provided subtle corrections, their partnership growing stronger with each passing moment. As they left Nixon's gravity well, Avis announced, plotting a course to the hidden star system. Estimated travel time, 6 standard days. Be prepared for possible anomalies en route. Anomalies? Jax asked, raising an eyebrow. The coordinates lie beyond mapped space, in a region known for gravitational distortions and uncharted hazards. I suggest caution. Caution's my middle name, Jax muttered. Let's do this. A galaxy of challenges. The journey was anything but smooth. Only 2 days in, they encountered their first obstacle, an asteroid field larger than anything Jax had ever seen. The dense cluster of tumbling rocks stretched for thousands of kilometers, with no apparent way around it. Let me guess, Jack said, staring at the cockpit display. We're flying through that, aren't we? Affirmative, Avis replied. The alternative route would add weeks to our journey. I will guide you through the safest path. Jax gritted his teeth and tightened his grip on the controls. As they entered the field, rocks the size of starships loomed around them, spinning erratically. Avis's voice remained calm, directing him to tilt, roll, and accelerate at precise moments. Bank left. Now. Increase thrust by 20%, Avis instructed. Jax followed the commands, his adrenaline pumping. Sweat dripped down his forehead as he narrowly avoided a massive boulder that came spinning toward them. The ship jolted as a smaller rock grazed the hull. Hey, Avis, Jack said through clenched teeth. Maybe warn me about those next time? Duly noted, Avis replied dryly. After hours of tense navigation, they finally cleared the field. Jax slumped back in his seat, exhaling deeply. Nice flying, Jax, Avis said. Your reaction time has improved significantly. Thanks, Jax muttered, wiping his brow. But next time, let's skip the interstellar obstacle course. Space pirates. 2 days later, another challenge emerged, this time in the form of an ambush. As they cruised through a seemingly empty sector, Avis's sensors detected 3 ships closing in fast. Unidentified vessels approaching, Avis announced. They are armed and locking onto us. Based on their profiles, they are likely pirates. Pirates? You've got to be kidding me, Jax groaned. Can't we outrun them? Negative. Their ships are faster and optimized for interception. Combat is unavoidable. Jax's heart sank. He wasn't a fighter, he barely knew how to pilot. Great. Any chance you've got weapons on board? Fortunately, yes, Avis said. I was decommissioned, but my defense systems remain operational. I will take control of targeting, but I require your assistance with evasive maneuvers. The pirates opened fire, and bright bolts of plasma streaked toward them. Jax gripped the controls and veered hard to the right, narrowly dodging the first volley. Adjust heading 30 degrees. Engage boosters, Avis instructed. Jax complied, and Avis returned fire. Pulses of energy shot from the ship's cannons, striking one of the pirate vessels and sending it spiraling out of control. The remaining 2 ships tightened their formation, flanking Avis. They're pinning us in. Jax yelled. Execute a barrel roll and activate countermeasures, Avis said calmly. Jax hit the buttons as instructed, releasing a cloud of decoy drones. The drones scattered, confusing the pirates' targeting systems. In the chaos, Avis landed a direct hit on one of the ships, reducing it to a ball of fire. The final pirate ship disengaged, retreating into the darkness. Jax let out a shaky laugh. We actually survived that. Indeed, Avis replied. Your piloting, while unorthodox, was effective. Jax grinned. Unorthodox? That's just my style. The hidden system. Finally, on the 6th day, they arrived at their destination. Jax stared out the viewport as Avis slowed to a crawl. Before them was a shimmering barrier, a field of energy that rippled like water in space. Beyond it lay the hidden star system Avis had described. "We're here," Avis said. "Activating analysis." The ship scanned the barrier, identifying a weak point. With precise calculations, Avis guided them through. The moment they passed the threshold, Jax gasped. The star system was unlike anything he'd ever seen. A single, luminous planet floated at the center, surrounded by ancient, crumbling space stations and satellites. The planet glowed with a soft golden hue, its surface reflecting light like liquid crystal. "What is this place?" Jax whispered. "The records indicate this system belonged to the Delari," Avis replied. "A civilization thought extinct over 300 years ago. They vanished during the Great Plague, leaving behind no trace until now." Jack stared in awe. "So, they're still alive?" "Possibly," Avis said. "I am detecting life support systems on the planet's surface, as well as faint energy readings from the stations. This system has been deliberately hidden for centuries." "Why?" Jax asked, his excitement tinged with unease. "That is the question we must answer," Avis replied. "But proceed with caution, Jax. Secrets of this magnitude are rarely kept without reason." As they descended toward the planet, Jax felt a strange mix of fear and anticipation. Whatever lay ahead would change everything for him, for Avis, and perhaps for the galaxy itself. The golden planet loomed larger as Avis guided the ship through its thin atmosphere. Below them stretched an otherworldly landscape, rolling crystalline fields, shimmering rivers of liquid light, and structures that appeared to grow organically from the ground, their surfaces iridescent under the strange sunlight. "This place doesn't look abandoned," Jax muttered, his eyes wide as he took in the surreal beauty. "How could a planet like this stay hidden for so long?" "Advanced cloaking technology," Avis replied. "The energy field we passed through masks this system from conventional sensors. Only someone with specific coordinates would know to look here." As they descended, Avis directed the ship toward a massive structure near the planet's equator. It resembled a colossal dome, its surface made of the same crystalline material as the terrain around it. Energy pulses traveled along its surface in rhythmic waves, like a heartbeat. "Life support systems are strongest here," Avis said. "This is likely the central facility." Jax brought the ship down, the landing gear crunching softly against the crystalline ground. He hesitated before standing up, glancing at the console. "You sure it's safe?" "No guarantees," Avis replied. "But based on current data, there are no immediate threats." Jax rolled his eyes. "Comforting." The stasis hall. Jax stepped out into the strange world, the air cooled but breathable. The quiet was unnerving, no wind, no animals, just an ambient hum that seemed to emanate from the ground itself. He made his way toward the dome, his reflection distorted in its glossy surface. As he approached, a section of the dome slid open soundlessly, revealing an entrance. Avis's voice crackled through his comms. "The structure is responding to your presence. Proceed cautiously." Inside, the air felt even colder. The interior was a massive, circular chamber filled with rows upon rows of stasis pods. Each pod glowed faintly, their occupants visible through the translucent coverings, humanoids with elongated limbs, translucent skin, and bioluminescent patterns that pulsed faintly in sync with the dome's energy. Jax swallowed hard. "These are the Delari?" "Affirmative," Avis said. "A species believed to have perished during the Great Plague. Their biology is extraordinarily adapted for environments across multiple star systems. They were considered one of the most advanced civilizations of their time." Jax approached one of the pods, peering closely at the being inside. Its chest rose and fell ever so slightly, confirming life. They're still alive. But why are they in stasis? Accessing the facility's records, Avis said. After a moment, it added, the Delari placed themselves in stasis to escape the plague. However, they were never reawakened. There is evidence suggesting that the plague mutated and their automated systems deemed reactivation unsafe. Jax frowned. So they just stayed like this? For centuries? It seems so. The cloaking field was likely activated to prevent intruders or scavengers from discovering them. A dilemma unfolds. Jax wandered deeper into the chamber, his mind racing. The Delari weren't extinct, they were waiting. But could the galaxy handle their return? Would the Delari even want to wake up, knowing they might face the same dangers that forced them into stasis? Avis, Jax said, his voice tense, if we wake them up, they could die. Or worse, they might spark chaos in the galaxy. That is a valid concern, Avis replied. However, leaving them in stasis indefinitely is also an ethical dilemma. They deserve the chance to decide their own fate. Jack stared at the rows of pods, feeling the weight of the decision pressing down on him. He wasn't a hero or a leader, he was just a scavenger. What right did he have to decide the fate of an entire species? Suddenly, Avis interrupted his thoughts. Jax, I've detected an incoming vessel. It appears we are no longer alone. What? Jax spun around, panic rising. Who is it? Unclear, Avis replied. The ship's design suggests it belongs to the Spheric Consortium, a faction known for exploiting ancient technologies. They likely intercepted our passage through the cloaking field. Jax's stomach dropped. They're scavengers. Like me. Only worse. Correct, Avis said. And if they discover the Delari, they will likely exploit or destroy them. Defending the secret. Jax sprinted back to the ship, his heart pounding. The spheric ship was already descending, its sleek, predatory design bristling with weaponry. He jumped into the cockpit, where Avis was already preparing the ship for takeoff. We can't let them find the Delari, Jax said, strapping himself in. What's the plan? Engage them in orbit, Avis replied. I will utilize evasive maneuvers and countermeasures while you operate the weapons. Great, Jax muttered. Just another day in paradise. The ship lifted off just as the spheric vessel landed. As Jax took the controls, Avis guided him into position. The spheric ship gave chase, its cannons lighting up the dark sky. Plasma bolts streaked past them, narrowly missing their hull. Return fire, Avis instructed. Jax fired the ship's weapons, striking the spheric vessel's shields. The enemy ship retaliated, a direct hit sending a shudder through Avis. Shields at 60%, Avis reported. Jax, we need to disable their weapons. Jax gritted his teeth and banked hard to the left, circling around the spheric ship. With Avis's targeting assistance, he aimed at the vessel's primary cannon and fired. The shot landed, sending a fiery explosion across the enemy's hull. They're retreating, Avis said as the spheric ship veered away, disappearing into the void. Jax exhaled in relief, his hands trembling. That was too close. Guardians of the Delari. Back on the surface, Jax and Avis knew they couldn't leave the Delari vulnerable. Working together, they reactivated the facility's defense systems, enhancing the cloaking field and deploying automated drones to patrol the perimeter. Avis also accessed the central AI controlling the stasis systems, programming it to wake the Delari only when the galaxy was ready. As they finished, Jax stood outside the dome, staring up at the stars. Do you think they'll ever wake up? Perhaps, Avis replied. And if they do, they will need allies to guide them. Someone to protect their legacy. Jax smirked. You volunteering for the job? I already have, Avis said. And I believe you have as well. Jax chuckled softly. Yeah, I guess I have. Together, they boarded the ship, the dome ceiling itself behind them. As they ascended into the sky, Jax felt a sense of purpose he'd never known before. He and Avis weren't just scavengers anymore, they were guardians of a galactic secret, protectors of a lost civilization. And though the galaxy remained vast and dangerous,